The Silver Snoopy Award. Very important words in Omega's catalogue. Now, before discussing the 50th anniversary model that has just been released, we're not only going to look at its design and the previous generations, but I'd also like to use this opportunity to create an overview, discuss the Snoopy Award, but also how Snoopy was involved with NASA and that development, and just how this watch in particular, when we look at the Speedmaster and the trillions of other limited editions, how this one is quite important. Actually, we could say one of the most important Speedmasters that Omega makes. So buckle in and let's have some fun. Why the affiliation with Snoopy? What actually happened? Well, in the 1960s, Charlie Brown cartoons were very popular. It just so happened that Apollo 10, when it was launched, the command module codename was Charlie Brown, and the LEM, or the Lunar Excursion model, was nicknamed Snoopy. Since this white module was being sent down to the moon and quite literally was made to snoop around the moon, they thought it worked pretty well, and that name has stuck ever since. So what began as a code name eventually became an award. So the Silver Snoopy Award, first given out in 1968, was a badge or a pin given to NASA employees and, in very rare cases, contractors, in recognition of, in quotations, excellence for professionalism, dedication and outstanding support that greatly enhanced spaceflight safety and mission success. Just mentioned, it's very rare that contractors received this award. It was supposed to be given to personnel, but the company Omega, the watch company, the primary contractor for creating thousands of Speedmasters for their astronauts, were also given this award after the Apollo 13 mission. And since then, over 15,000 people have been awarded the Silver Snoopy. So it was a very unique time for a company to receive this kind of award in the first place. But what actually happened? What was Apollo 13 all about? Most of us here probably know the story, but the infamous number 13 did scare a lot of people in the first place. It so happened that the astronauts of Apollo 13 had to abort the moon landing because of serious malfunctions and electrical failures. What they had to then do was use the moon to slingshot their way back to Earth, relying primarily on mechanics. The only things that really worked in their module were dials, instrument clusters. So after a bit of number crunching and deliberating with NASA, they determined that they needed to time a 14-second burst in order to align their module to Earth. And in order to do this accurately and with precision, they used the Omega Speedmaster. So in a very true sense, in a very real situation, this watch saved the mission, saved the men, and because of that small calculation, they were able to land back on Earth. Because of that feat, Apollo 13 is considered to be one of the most successful failures in NASA's history. So this award was given to Omega in 1970, and between then and 2003, it remained dormant. Then out of nowhere, we see the Speedmaster Professional arrive with a small badge at the 9 o'clock position. To save us from confusion, because there are 3 models, I'll be calling them Snoopy 1, 2, and 3. Snoopy 1 was extremely basic. At the 9 o'clock position, you see the original patch, we could call it, of Spaceman Snoopy with the text, "Eyes on the stars" above him. An interesting piece of information about this original drawing and the sketch of Spaceman Snoopy was that it was done by Charles Schulz, and he didn't charge NASA a cent to do it. He loved the space program that much that he created this drawing for them to use on the badges, on all the plaques. He allowed NASA to use his character for this reason. The only way you can tell that this watch is a special edition is by the small Snoopy at the 9, but also on the caseback. You see the blue patch repeated again. Pay close attention to the colors of this, because it will be spoken about later on. The one main issue about this watch is, yes, it's an anniversary and it's important, but the originals are difficult to find, especially since lots of people do swap out casebacks with replicas, and they can be difficult watches to collect and expensive mistakes if you get it wrong. So moving from the conventional professional Speedmaster, we jump to 2015, where we saw the 45th anniversary Snoopy Speedmaster. This watch, a part of a batch of 1,970 pieces, another limited edition Speedmaster from Omega, but one of the most unique, no doubt. Over the last few years, this watch has become extremely popular, one of, if not the most, sought after modern professional Speedmaster. So what makes this watch unique? Well, first glance you can tell that it is a Snoopy Speedmaster. I think that's the biggest bonus. In the line of the many thousands of limited editions, it is its own separate thing, and it's important. The use of monochromatic colors speaks so true to Snoopy and his presence. And in a way, this watch has a comic strip feel to it, which is also exciting. Then getting down to some of the details, you notice on the minute track, you see a simple ladder format, and beneath it in print says what could you do in 14 seconds? Obviously highlighting the Apollo 13 time. At the 9 o'clock, we no longer have the traditional Snoopy badge, but we instead have what looks to be him lying on his kennel, as he does in many of the picture frames. And as a thought bubble, failure is not an option. If I'm not mistaken, either quoting one of the astronauts or one of the men behind the scenes who was managing this operation of Apollo 13. I really enjoy how contradictory the image is next to the thought bubble, because we know that when Snoopy is lying like this, he is asleep, he is totally lazy, he's not doing anything. But in his mind, he's thinking about this greater purpose. It's a great juxtaposition. And then you look at the actual dial of the watch itself, for we know everything has been inverted here. Generally, we know that the Speedmaster, the dial, is black, and all the batons and plots are white. Same with the hands and everything else. They quite literally inverted everything on the watch face to an excellent effect. But then this model also came with some excellent party tricks, like the loom. It is phenomenal. It feels so space age. It gives you that idea that this watch is an instrument cluster of some kind. The tachymeter bezel is fully loomed. The negative space surrounding the batons is what glows. For what it is, for what it represents, it's a brilliant Snoopy addition. Not only do the colors communicate its intent, not only is it easily recognizable, that it's also playful, but serious at the same time. There are many good reasons why this watch is so sought after. Creatively, I can see the appeal. And then at the back of this model, we see the same stylized sketch of the Silver Snoopy Award, a little bit more streamlined. No longer do we see eyes on the stars, but instead just a blue background and a very well engraved silver pin. Looks much more true to the actual pin that the astronauts and employees received. And then we arrive to the 50th anniversary Silver Snoopy Award Speedmaster. Now, if we are being realistic, 45 years is a good anniversary, but 50 years is a bit more prominent. It's a bit more important. And at first, I was a bit surprised with this model. It didn't grab me as much as I thought it would. That's probably because when I saw this, I thought Speedmaster CK2998. There was a brilliant blue and white variant that was just released a couple of years ago that looks almost exactly like this if you don't pay enough attention. But very much like the Snoopy 2, the Snoopy 3, the devil is in the details. I didn't realize that this watch in fact uses a silver dial. Omega is well known today to print the chemical compound or the actual element that is used in their materials when it comes to their dials. Very often we see ceramic highlighted this way. And if you look really close to the dial, you see AG925. AG, of course, being the symbol for silver. 925, I would imagine, means 92.5% silver. So a brushed silver dial for the Silver Snoopy Award, great. Then we move to the color format of this watch, and yes, it's blue. It's another blue watch. But this one has some prominence, because we know what the original patch was and what it looked like. And in a way, they've gone back to their roots to see how they could best implement it, and they've done a great job with this too. At the 9 o'clock, we see the original sketch, monochromatic, no colors, with 50th anniversary above him. The hands, the batons, the applied logo are all blued. I don't know if they're heat blued, but legibility-wise, we know how effective a panda aesthetic is, and this one works wonders as well. The 30-minute totalizer, the 12-hour totalizer with white hands, very easy to read. The contrasting white and blue on the bezel, effective. Unfortunately, this one does not have a loomed tachymeter. It is white enamel painted, but it is a ceramic bezel. So where's the watch's party piece? Well, most of us know. Turn the watch around and you are greeted with quite an exceptional caseback. The moon is applied onto the sapphire crystal. The Earth that we see at the background is connected to the running seconds on the dial, so that will do a full rotation every 60 seconds. Once you hit the chronograph, a small Snoopy inside a very period-correct Apollo 13 module will do a full circumnavigation around the dial. And if I'm not wrong, this remains to be seen, that it takes him a full 14 seconds for him to navigate himself around the moon. Very true to form, and an excellent attention to detail. And then we also see the famous eyes on the stars written on the dial as well. So the Silver Snoopy 50th Anniversary Speedmaster, does it live up to its name? And I'd like to answer that question with another question. If Snoopy wasn't affiliated with this watch, if the Silver Award meant nothing, would this still be a very prominent watch? Just being honest, next to the 2015 45th Anniversary Snoopy Speedmaster, the older generation has this great blend of fun but also seriousness. It's dynamic and complex enough to be a watch that can stand on its own very well. This one next to it doesn't seem to have the same amount of punch. But for what it is, representing the 50th anniversary, using Snoopy as the masthead, this watch does a lot at the same time. Not only does this model have the new addition of the coaxial 3681 caliber, but if we return to the caseback again, I've heard a lot of talk about this watch being gimmicky, childish even, but that's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's based on a cartoon character, it's supposed to be playful, it's supposed to be fun, and this kind of added complication on top of the chronograph caliber is excellent watchmaking. Just for a moment, let's step back and think, if we had to see something like this on the caseback of a Patek or other high horology brands, you would expect it. This is something, a feature that we would expect to see from a much higher tier brand in the price category. The fact that they've done this not only exhibits the playfulness, but also makes it quite a hallmark for watchmaking in the brand. I think overall what makes it such a nice watch is that it's tastefully done. It's not in your face. And that might be the reason why I found it quite underwhelming at first, because it is extremely plain. It does in a way have a similar effect like the first generation did, a plain Jane Speedmaster with Snoopy at the 9. But it also introduces an X factor and a more dynamic dial that we assigned to the Snoopy 2. So in many ways, I think the 50th anniversary is the best of both worlds. Best news for all of us is that, as far as I know, these aren't limited edition models, so we might be able to get our hands on them. The marketing around this has also been brilliant. Not only a cartoon sketch of Snoopy with a watch on his wrist, I'll be sure to include some of the videos for you to look at while I talk over it. To many out there who think it is a bit boring and a bit plain, well, in many ways it is safe when we look at its design overall, but the front is reserved and the back is just entertaining. So the Snoopy Speedmasters will continue to be popular. Not only are they very unique and have an interesting backstory behind them, but these two latest generations do also offer a lot when we look at how they have been designed, with a playful and restrained approach. And of all the thousands of limited editions that we know Omega makes, these ones are definitely some of the best.